What do you get when a royal figure steps onto a television set, acting like the entire world should bow to his presence, only to learn the hard way that respect has to be earned, not handed to you? It took exactly 38 seconds for the situation to spiral out of control. But before we dive into this jaw-dropping confrontation, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we're pulling back the curtain on what's hidden behind the glittering facade of royalty. We're revealing the shocking behavior of entitled stars that the cameras never capture. We've got the raw footage they hoped would never see the light of day, and trust me, you won't want to miss a second of what's coming next. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's hear your take on this outrageously unprofessional behavior. Now, let's dive in. The lights inside the studio were almost unbearable, sweat gathering on the backs of everyone involved. Piers Morgan, cool and composed as always, sat behind his desk. His tie was perfectly adjusted, and his signature smile was fixed in place. He was ready. His guest, however, was far from ready to comply with the usual formalities. Prince Harry stepped onto the set, clad in casual attire, designer jeans, a simple button-up shirt, and surveyed the surroundings like a man who believed he owned the whole place. No handshake. Just a slow, deliberate plop of his phone onto the desk between them, his eyes barely meeting Piers for a greeting. Piers didn't flinch. He was a man who had interviewed presidents, prime ministers, and the who's who of the entertainment world. He had seen it all. So, with unwavering professionalism, he greeted the royal, "Welcome to the show, Harry. Glad to have you here." Harry didn't return the warmth. Instead, he muttered, barely audible, "Let's just get this over with." The room went silent. The audience shifted uncomfortably, exchanging glances. This wasn't the poised, polished image they'd seen of the prince in royal documentaries or public events. No, this was a different side of him, one they weren't prepared for. Piers, unfazed by Harry's attitude, maintained his calm. "I appreciate you taking the time to join us, Harry. I know you've got a lot on your plate. Let's start with something simple, then. You've been in the spotlight your whole life. How do you handle all the pressure that comes with it?" Harry didn't even pretend to think about it before scoffing. A full, audible scoff. He shot a look at Piers that could freeze water. "Pressure?" he repeated. "You want to talk to me about pressure? You sit there in your comfy little studio, asking questions off a script, pretending to care about the celebrities you interview. That's not pressure. You don't know what real pressure is." The audience collectively held their breath. The tension was palpable. Piers's smile didn't fade, but it tightened ever so slightly as he nodded. "I think plenty of people might disagree with that, Harry. But I respect your perspective," Piers said, refusing to back down. "Let's move on. You've spoken in the past about wanting privacy for your family, yet you've done interviews, released books, even had a documentary series. Some people find that contradictory. What would you say to that?" Harry didn't respond immediately, but when he did, the air around them seemed to shift. He leaned forward slightly, his gaze sharpening as if he was ready to pounce. "What I'd say is that people like you have built entire careers off exploiting my family's struggles. You chase us, harass us, and twist everything to suit your narrative. And now you're asking me why we want to set the record straight? The hypocrisy is astounding." Piers, ever the professional, raised an eyebrow. The silence in the studio was deafening. "I think you might be mistaken there, Harry," he said carefully. "I've never followed you or your family, and I've certainly never harassed anyone. I'm a journalist. My job is to report on the news. When you step into the public eye, it's only natural for questions to arise." But Harry wasn't having any of it. His voice shot up sharp and biting. "Questions? That's what you call it? You twist the facts. You make up stories to sell papers, to get clicks, to boost your ratings. You don't care about the truth. You're just parasites feeding off the chaos you create." The studio fell into complete silence. You could feel the tension in the air. The audience was visibly stunned by Harry's outburst. His words hung there, raw and unfiltered, and the weight of his accusations was undeniable. Piers kept his composure, folding his hands calmly on the desk. "That's a pretty severe accusation, Harry. Do you have any evidence to back that up?" Harry didn't hesitate. "Evidence? Everyone knows what you media people do. You pretend to care about the truth, but you're all in it for the same reason. Clicks, views. Your entire industry thrives off making people look bad." The words hung heavy in the air. Piers, despite the harshness of the attack, remained unfazed. "If you believe I've misreported something, we can discuss it. But making sweeping claims without any facts won't get us anywhere." Harry's demeanor shifted in an instant. The tension, already thick, now reached a boiling point. He stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You want proof?" he asked, his voice dripping with contempt. "How about the fact that your kind drove my mother to her death? How's that for evidence?" The studio gasped collectively. No one had expected this. The conversation had just taken an extremely dark turn. Piers remained seated, his expression now a serious, controlled mask. "I'm deeply sorry for what happened to your mother, Harry. It was a tragedy, an unimaginable loss. But I was not there that night. I did not chase her car. I've condemned the paparazzi's role in that accident many times. To blame me for something I had no part in is not only unfair, it's beneath you." Harry's face turned crimson. "Beneath me? You don't get to tell me what's beneath me. You think you're some kind of saint, sitting there in your suit, playing the good guy, but you're no better than the rest of them. You have blood on your hands." Piers stood slowly, his calm voice carrying a weight that silenced the room. "I understand your pain, Harry, but those are some heavy accusations to throw around without evidence. If you want to talk about your experience, I'm here for that. But attacking my integrity isn't going to get us anywhere." Harry, clearly losing his patience, leaned forward, pointing a finger at Piers. "Integrity? You want to talk about integrity? You're a puppet. You repeat whatever your bosses tell you. You attack whoever they want you to attack." Piers shook his head slowly. "That's not true, Harry. I've been fired for standing by my beliefs. I've turned down opportunities because I wouldn't compromise my principles. You've created a version of me in your head, but it's based on bitterness, not facts." Harry's eyes burned with rage as he took a step closer to the desk, his voice low and menacing. "Bitterness? You think I'm bitter? I've given up everything for my family's well-being. I walked away from wealth, privilege, and comfort because I believe in something. I have principles. What have you ever sacrificed?" Piers held his gaze, unfazed. "I've sacrificed time with my family. I've received death threats. I've been sued, attacked, and vilified for doing my job. I didn't choose this path for fame or glory. I chose it because I believe in the power of journalism and accountability." Harry's face reddened further. "You think that makes you special? You think that makes you a martyr?" He spat the words with disdain. "You don't know what it's like to give up everything." Piers leaned back slightly in his chair, his expression unchanged. "You're right, Harry. I haven't lived your life. But that doesn't mean your struggles give you the right to treat others like garbage. You came here as my guest. I welcomed you with respect, but you've done nothing but insult me and my profession since the moment you walked in." Harry, desperate to shift the conversation, pointed at the cameras. "This whole thing is a setup. You brought me here to make me look bad, to humiliate me. Well, guess what? It's not going to work. People see through you." Piers stood up slowly, his voice firm. "If you leave now, Harry, you're just proving everyone right. You're showing the world that you can't handle even the slightest pushback. Is that really the message you want to send?" Harry hesitated for a moment, his eyes flashing. He turned on his heel, heading for the exit. "You want me to stay here and be lectured by you?" "No, I'm done." Piers remained calm, his words cutting through the tension like a knife. "If you walk out now, you're only proving that you can't handle the heat. You're running away from accountability." But Harry wasn't listening. The door slammed shut behind him with a deafening sound, signaling the end of the interview. Piers stood in the center of the studio for a long moment, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, it was to the audience, addressing them directly. "Well, that certainly didn't go as planned." Piers turned to the camera, his demeanor unchanged, but there was a sharpness to his tone now. "I invited Prince Harry here in good faith. I genuinely hoped for a meaningful discussion. What we got was an outburst, a display of entitlement, and accusations that had no basis in fact. He paused for a moment, collecting his thoughts. I respect the pain he's gone through in his life. Losing his mother at such a young age, growing up under the harsh glare of public scrutiny, it's unimaginable. But that doesn't excuse the behavior we just witnessed. We all have our struggles, but we don't get to treat people poorly just because life hasn't been kind to us. That's not how respect works. Piers' voice grew firmer as he continued. The truth is, we live in a time where too many people in the public eye are never challenged. They live in bubbles, surrounded by people who tell them exactly what they want to hear, who never push back. And that's dangerous. It creates a mentality where they believe they can say or do anything without consequence. Today, I showed Harry that's not the case. The camera shifted to reveal a panel of experts. Amanda, the royal correspondent, James, the psychologist, and Sarah, the media analyst. They all looked somewhat stunned, processing what they'd just witnessed. Piers turned to Amanda first. You've been covering the royal family for years. Have you ever seen anything like this? Amanda shook her head slowly. No, Piers. I've covered the royals for over 2 decades, and I have never seen a member of the family act like this in public. His behavior was shocking. The way he tried to manipulate the situation, deflecting every attempt at a real conversation. It was unlike anything I've seen. Piers nodded and turned to James. From a psychological perspective, what are we dealing with here? James leaned forward thoughtfully, his expression serious. What we saw was a man in deep emotional pain. He's angry, and that anger is misdirected. He's lashing out at anyone who he perceives as a threat, but at the heart of it, he's deeply wounded. And what's troubling is that he hasn't learned to process those emotions in a healthy way. Instead of being vulnerable and honest, he's choosing to attack. It's a defense mechanism, one that he's been using for years. Piers then turned to Sarah. How do you think the press will react to this, Sarah? Sarah smiled wryly. Oh, Piers, this is going to be everywhere. You've just given the media the most viral moment of the year. Every tabloid, every website, every social media platform will have something to say about this. And, let's be honest, this interview will get way more attention than any of the staged, polished interviews the royals usually do. People love drama, and they love a good scandal. Piers shook his head slightly. I didn't expect drama. I expected a conversation. But Harry clearly wasn't here for that. It's just a shame. Sarah nodded in agreement. What we saw today was a public figure who couldn't handle the heat. And now the media is going to dissect every word, every move he made. This is going to follow him for a long time. Piers let out a small sigh, turning his attention back to the audience. You know, this isn't just about one interview. It's about a larger issue, celebrity entitlement. People like Harry, people who have grown up surrounded by wealth, privilege, and adoration, think they can walk through life without ever being questioned. But that's not how the world works. Not for anyone, no matter who they are. He leaned forward, his gaze steady and intense. This interview wasn't just about Prince Harry or me. It was about all of us. It was about holding people accountable, no matter their title, their status, or their last name. We can't let celebrities hide behind their fame or wealth. They need to answer for their actions just like everyone else. And if that makes me unpopular, so be it. As the show returned from a brief commercial break, Piers took a moment to address the audience. I know many of you are going to have strong opinions about what happened today. Some of you will think I was too harsh. Others will think I was right to call out Harry's behavior. But let me leave you with this. When someone in the public eye behaves like Harry did today, it's not just about them. It's about the message they're sending. It's about what happens when someone thinks they can act without consequence. He paused, his voice softening slightly. Sympathy is important, but it doesn't mean we should excuse bad behavior. And what we saw today was entitlement, pure and simple. A person who believes that their pain and privilege give them the right to treat others poorly. That's not how the world should work, and it's certainly not how the media should operate. Backstage, the crew was in a frenzy. Phones were ringing, social media was exploding, and everyone was talking about what had just transpired. The debate was already heating up across the internet. People were taking sides, some supporting Piers for standing his ground, others attacking him for being too aggressive. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Every platform was flooded with reactions. Memes, hot takes, opinion pieces, and celebrity commentary filled the digital space. The fallout from the interview was just beginning. Even as Harry drove away from the studio, his phone was buzzing non-stop, messages flooding in. But he ignored them. The anger still seethed inside him. How dare Piers talk to him like that? How dare he question everything Harry had been through? But beneath the rage, there was a nagging feeling, one that Harry wasn't ready to confront. Was he really the victim here, or had he overreacted? Meanwhile, Piers sat quietly in his office reflecting on what had just happened. It had been chaotic, uncomfortable, and nothing like he had expected. But through all of it, he had remained composed. He hadn't let Harry's insults, accusations, or emotional outbursts throw him off course. "I didn't expect it to end like this," Piers said to his producer, who had come in to check on him. "But sometimes the most difficult interviews are the ones that reveal the most." The producer nodded, clearly impressed. "You handled it well, Piers. You didn't let him derail you." Piers smiled faintly. "I'm not here to make people comfortable. I'm here to ask the questions that need to be asked. And if people don't like the answers, that's not my problem." As the night wore on, the fallout from the interview continued to dominate headlines. In living rooms across the world, people were still talking about it. Some thought Piers was too harsh. Others thought Harry had been exposed for who he really was. But one thing was clear: the conversation wasn't over. It had only just begun. Piers knew that his job wasn't about being liked. It was about being honest, even when the truth wasn't convenient. And as the world continued to debate what had just happened, Piers Morgan could rest easy knowing he had done exactly what he was meant to do. He had asked the difficult questions, he had pushed for the truth, and he had refused to back down. That was the essence of journalism. The camera zoomed in on him as the show came to a close, his eyes unwavering. "Sometimes," he said to the camera, "the most important thing we can do is stand our ground. And that's exactly what I did today." With that, the credits began to roll, and the story of the interview that changed everything continued to unfold.